In this video, I'll show why just investing in real estate is terrible advice for most people. Picture this. You're sitting across from your uncle at Thanksgiving dinner, and he's telling you for the third time that you're wasting your money on rent. Real estate is the only way to build real wealth, he says, waving his fork for emphasis. Meanwhile, you're looking at your savings account with maybe $8,700 in it, carrying $11,000 in credit card debt, and thinking about how you'd need to come up with over $100,000 just for the down payment and closing costs on a rental property. This is the advice that gets repeated everywhere, on social media, at dinner parties, from that one friend who claims their cousin is killing it with rentals. But here's what's going to blow your mind about this advice. My name is Seb, and I'm basically obsessed with figuring out why terrible financial advice spreads faster than good advice. Let's start with the first hurdle that eliminates most people before they even begin: the down payment. Here's the thing. Buying a rental property isn't like buying your first home. Investment properties typically require 20 to 25% down, compared to just 3% for a primary residence. The national median home price right now is $414,400. Do the math with me here. 25% of that is $103,600. Add in closing costs of another $7,000 to $18,000, plus the mandatory cash reserves lenders require, about 6 months of mortgage payments, roughly $14,000, and you're looking at needing between $100,000 and $135,000 in liquid cash just to get started. Now, let's be real about something. The median savings account balance for people aged 35 to 44 is around $8,700. The median 401k balance for that same group, $36,117. And remember, that money is supposed to be for retirement, not rating to buy a rental property. Meanwhile, the average American household carrying credit card debt owes $11,019 at an average interest rate of 22%. Think about it this way. Telling someone with less than $10,000 in savings and 5 figures of high-interest debt to just invest in real estate is like telling someone who can't swim to train for a triathlon. The prerequisites aren't just missing, they're not even visible on the horizon. But let's say you're one of the lucky ones. Let's say you actually have $75,000 sitting around for a down payment. Here's where things get really interesting, because this is where the real estate gurus conveniently stop talking. Let me paint you a picture of what actually happens when you buy a $300,000 rental property. You put down $75,000. Which is 25%. You get a mortgage for the remaining $225,000 at about 7% interest. And by the way, investment property rates are about half a percentage point higher than primary residence rates. Your mortgage payment is $1,497 per month. But that's just the beginning. Here's what nobody talks about. Property taxes on a $300,000 property average about $3,300 per year. Landlord insurance runs you another $1,750 annually. Maintenance, the stuff that breaks, the roof that needs replacing eventually, the water heater that decides to die at the worst possible time. That's conservatively 1% of the property value per year. So add $3,000. You need to set aside money for major capital expenditures, like HVAC replacements and roof repairs. Another $1,500 annually. Add all that up, and you're paying $27,514 per year before we even talk about vacancy or property management. Now let's talk about what you're collecting. If you charge $2,250 per month in rent, which is pretty standard for a property like this, that's $27,000 per year in gross rent. Sounds like it breaks even, right? Wrong. The national vacancy rate right now is 7.2%, which means you're losing $1,944 in potential rent. If you hire a property manager, because let's be honest, most people don't want to be getting calls about clogged toilets at midnight, that's 9% of collected rent. Another $2,255 gone. Here's the math that will blow your mind. Your actual net operating income is $22,801. Your actual expenses are $27,514. You're losing $4,713 in the first year. You're literally paying almost $400 per month for the privilege of being a landlord. I know what you're thinking. But Seb, The property appreciates and rents go up. Sure, eventually cash flow turns positive as rents increase while your mortgage payment stays fixed, but with current prices and rates, that takes 5 to 8 years. 5 to 8 years of writing checks every month to keep your investment alive. And we haven't even talked about the fun surprises. Tenant turnover costs an average of $1,750 every time someone moves out. Most tenants move within 5 years, so you're getting hit with that regularly. Evictions, when they happen, run between $3,500 and $10,000. When you factor in legal fees, lost rent, and property damage. A new roof? That's $8,000 to $15,000. HVAC replacement? $5,000 and $12,000. These aren't hypothetical expenses. They're inevitable. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Let me show you exactly what happens if you take that same $75,000 and put it into something incredibly boring instead. An S&P 500 index fund. The S&P 500 has returned about 10% annually over the long term when you include dividends. Let's use a more conservative 7% to account for inflation. Your $75,000 becomes $147,536 in 10 years. In 20 years, it's $290,227. In 30 years, you're looking at $570,920. And that's the conservative estimate. But here's the real kicker. This requires zero additional capital, zero time commitment, and costs about $22 per year in fees. You can sell it in seconds with no commission. It's diversified across over 3,600 companies, instead of concentrated in one building on one street in one city. Compare that to your rental property. After 30 years, assuming 3.5% appreciation, your property is worth about $842,000. Your mortgage is paid off. Your cumulative cash flow, negative for the first several years, then positive, nets you maybe $200,000 to $300,000 over 3 decades. Total wealth created, roughly $1 million to $1.1 million. The stock investment, at a full 10% nominal return, that $75,000 becomes $1.3 million. And remember, one of these strategies required you to spend thousands of hours over 30 years managing tenants, fixing toilets, and dealing with vacancies. The other required you to click buy once and then forget about it. Let's be real about something. Leverage is real, and it's the main reason real estate can work. That $75,000 controls a $300,000 asset, and when the property goes up in value, you capture gains on the full amount. But here's what nobody tells you. Leverage works both ways. If your property drops just 20% in value, your entire equity is wiped out. During the 2008 crisis, nearly 45% of people who bought in 2006 were underwater on their mortgages nationally. In Las Vegas, prices fell 61%. In Stockton, California, 95% of 2006 buyers had negative equity. This brings us to the question nobody wants to ask. If the math is so questionable, why does everyone keep giving this advice? Here's the thing about your brain. It's working against you. There's something called tangibility bias, which is exactly what it sounds like. People overvalue things they can see and touch. A building feels real and safe. Numbers on a screen feel abstract and risky. Gallup found that 34% of Americans think real estate is the best long-term investment, but only 18% say stocks, despite stocks having better historical returns. Then there's the illusion of control. You think you can influence your real estate returns by picking the right property, renovating smartly, and managing well. With stocks, you're just along for the ride. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Local economic conditions, interest rate movements, and regulatory changes dwarf anything you do as a landlord. And here's the big one. Survivorship bias. The people who made money in real estate never shut up about it. The people who lost everything, who faced foreclosure, who got destroyed by bad tenants, they don't brag about it at parties. Between 2008 and 2013, About 4.9 million families lost their homes to foreclosure. Their stories aren't on Instagram. Now, here's where most people completely mess this up. They hear "don't invest in real estate" and think I'm saying real estate is bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that for most Americans right now, it's not the right first investment, or second, or third. If you've got credit card debt at 22% interest, paying that off delivers a guaranteed return that beats anything real estate or stocks can offer. If you're part of the 59% who can't cover a $1,000 emergency, building that safety net is priority number one. If you're not maxing out your 401k, especially with an employer match, which is literally free money, you're leaving thousands of dollars on the table. Think about it this way. You can contribute $24,500 to a 401k in 2026, plus another $7,500 to an IRA. If your employer matches even 4%, that's instant returns before your investments even grow. A worker who maxes out these accounts from age 30 to 60 at a 7% return accumulates over $2.5 million. That's wealth building that doesn't require a six-figure lump sum or managing tenants for 3 decades. So there you have it. The math is brutal, but it's honest. Real estate investing can work, but not for someone with $8,700 in savings, $11,000 in credit card debt, and no emergency fund. Not when 75% of American households can't even afford to buy a primary residence, let alone an investment property with a 25% down payment.